The sound of Pacific Drive was designed to help the player feel like they're present in this otherworldly place that's alive and unpredictable, with an illusion of comfort in their car. Let's start by talking about the ambiances because they were such a huge part of setting the mood through sound. We had 4 main areas with many different zones, each with 3 different beds and settings for the time of day and weather. The garage was the home base and comfort zone, with parameters to dim the outside world while still hearing it through this portal we set up by the door. We had custom perspective settings like this that we used for all the buildings. And then the forest was the most familiar and safe. The swampy area started to feel a little more weird, but still had a lot of familiar elements like frogs. And then rocky was the most dangerous and out of the ordinary. Each of these zones had a set of unnatural scatter sounds that often made the player think there was something nearby. And then we had an extremely detailed set of weather-based ambiances. Each kind of rain had its own bed depending on how heavy it was and whether it was inside a building, the car, or outside. We also had different intensities of winds and scatter sounds for all the different kinds of weather. And then in general, the sheer amount of design work that went into the anomalies, car upgrades, props, stations, and story moments also make the sound of this game unique. Every last detail has custom coverage. To contribute to the feeling that the zone is alive, many of the elements had layers from live creatures or people as well.
There are these creatures that jump on you. They jump on the car. I got COVID and I lost my voice. And when my voice was returning, it sounded really creepy. So I started with recording my voice, and this is how it sounded. And that was basically the main layer for these guys. So this is my voice with black hole, and then I also added a tremolo to make it move. Kind of like going like that. And then I started working on the feeling of what the body felt like. But then that wasn't enough because I needed something like more menacing, so I added this layer right here. And it's like a vocal, like very dark. And those are the bunnies. It's just 2 animals and reverb. I used camels. And they're already like really creepy on their own. So if you add black hole and the orb, once I had those, I added horses. Very regular horse, your everyday horse. Add reverb and you play it back slower. It sounds. So then when you add the horse and the camel together with the orb and black hole, you have
Millie also recorded many non-human elements to add to her anomaly design. Outside of the zone, the design of the car had a lot of detail to help it feel like the real thing. Like that feeling you get when you open the door and step out of the rain. On the design side, this meant a lot of recording. From the engine of the studio director Alex's wagon the game was based around, to the footsteps, doors, horn, and buttons of my station wagon. The buttons were used for most of the UI sounds to build on the theme of the game. We even added the sound of a seatbelt, even though there wasn't a visual for that, because safety first. The implementation of the car is also very important to the sound of the overall game, with different perspectives for the engine sound. And many parameters to account for which surface you're driving on and what kind of tire you're using.
Basically, every wheel plays from this surface wheel installed container. And the first step is, do we have a wheel there at all? Because you could be driving the car and be missing a wheel entirely. So if you're missing a wheel, we've got the tire missing sound. If you do have the wheel installed, we have all of these sounds that play. We've got the drift layer. We have just like the regular forward sound, so just the core layer. We've got spinning, so if say you're pushed up against a wall and you have the gas down all the way and you're not actually making any progress. And we figure out if we're spinning stuck based on, we do a calculation in the engine based on how much throttle we have on versus how much speed we have. So we have a window where it gradually ramps up over time. We've just added an additional layer, which is if you're using a type of tire that would have poor performance. We have a different sound for if it's irregular, if it's flat, or if it's blown. In a couple different states, we have normal and flat, and then eventually we add the blown out layer if the wheel is blown out while it's flat. Yeah, the car tires just have a lot of different RTPCs driving them. We have the speed of the car, we have the throttle of the car. We do some different stuff based on if this is one of the front two tires or one of the back two tires. There's some sounds that we decrease in volume if they're the back tires. If the wheel is installed or not, that will help us switch between some of those assets, the spinning amount. We also filter the sounds based on how closed the doors are, because for example, you could have a door completely off or hanging open if something knocked it open. Yeah, there's just a whole bunch of tires, and that's how the system is broken down in Wise.
We also have dynamic perspective shifts for the radio, depending on whether you're in the car or outside with the doors opened or closed.
For a long time, the radio just sort of was filtered based on how many car doors were open. But sort of right at the end, I was able to add, it's like based on your position relative to which car doors are open. So you get the natural feeling of occlusion of like, if you're right next to an open door, you're going to hear it pretty clearly. But as you go to the other side of the car, it's going to sound like it's filtered out. But that doesn't apply to the reverb send for the world. So if the door is open, but you're in a reverberant space like one of the industrial sites, you'll still have like the full spectrum sound, like pumping the reverb. So it sounds like it's coming out of the car and like filling up the space.
Overall, the world you're experiencing in the game is reflected in the sound, whether it's the calm of the garage or the intensity of the storm. The zone is alive, dynamic, and thoughtfully designed to have the sound transport the player into the world.